Yeah.
Yeah, now.
Now, oh, but I don't see the chat. How do I see the chat?
You have the chat here at the bottom too.
In the bottom.
No,
Yeah.
I can't see it. Oh, maybe.
In the bottom bar.
Oh, wait a second. I see it at the top, maybe. No?
Or maybe, yeah.
No, I don't. Oh, more chat. Okay.
Okay.
And you
No.
see there also the participants' links.
Yeah, people is entering, so.
But I don't see chat. Alt H. No, Alt H.
You should see. Where do you see the questions and answers? So
Up at the top.
It should be close to that.
Yes, I see more, and it says chat, and it says Alt H.
Okay, then you have, where is chat? You have see. So
oh, maybe I have to go back to here. This is the part I get lost in. I have to go to full view or something here, right, where I have you guys.
Maybe.
How do I go to?
Hello.
How do I go to big view? I don't know.
Hi, Joanna. Hi, everybody. Also, people is entering. Hi, Mercedes.
I'm not able to see chat.
Oh, why not? That's very strange. You should see.
There is a bar on the bottom.
How do I get? No, it's at the top. But can I focus on just a Zoom view? How do I get to a Zoom view? So that I'm not looking at my screen with you guys on the side. I want to see you guys.
Do you want to share with us your screen a moment?
Yeah, stop share, you mean? Stop share? Is that what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah, and now you share with us like the.
Do you see the chat now, Lynn?
I have chat now, yeah.
Okay, so if you click on the chat, maybe there is a pop-up that it can be open in another site.
It's open now. I have it open.
Okay, now you share the screen.
That's what I did before.
And then it disappears?
Yeah, I've got to find a way.
Do you have, Nuria, the presentation? Maybe you can share it.
Now I was thinking the same.
So just put the screen, minimize the screen because you have full screen.
Yeah, how do I minimize? That's what I'm trying to do.
You go on the corner, on the top corner, left.
Yeah.
And then
I mute. No.
Hello, everybody. You are entering the session. We are just dealing with some issues and we are waiting for the rest of participants entering.
Down at the bottom, I have 3 dots.
More?
Oh, show presenter view. End show.
Just put the mouse.
Oh no, because this is
put the mouse at the bottom and the bar will appear.
The mouse, my bar is at the top.
Well, then at the top and the.
What we can do, if you send your presentation to me, Lynn, I can share the presentation.
Yeah.
And
then you will see the.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to. I won't control it.
You can
just
give.
Tell
her next.
It's too complicated, I think, for you to do. Okay. So I won't be. I'll just have to move back and forth. That's all I can.
And we can comment the chat if you want. If you want, I can do the comments. I can just.
Okay. So wait a second. Maybe the thing to do is to. No, I still don't have the chat. It all disappears. Okay. Well, anyway.
There should be a pop-up when you are sharing the screen.
I know, but
it doesn't matter. I'll read the chat for you.
Okay. So shall we start? I'm sorry, everybody.
No.
Oh, no.
Okay. I think almost, yeah, we are almost, everybody is almost here. So thanks, Alfonso. But Alfonso is offering some tips. As I said, so put the mouse on the bar, but it seems it's not working. Anyway, we will just read the chat when you are presenting and then you can see it.
Yeah.
So welcome everyone to this webinar. As some of you, because I see the names and I see that some of you have been with us this morning. So as you know, this is the final multiplier event of our European project. We had already 4 sessions this morning, and now we are starting the first session this afternoon in Barcelona. In other countries, maybe different times. And this project that we share, the European project, focus on researcher identity development, and particularly we are interested in early career research development. And when I'm talking about we, I refer to a group of researchers, a team of researchers from different countries. We are working together for almost 10 years now, and doing empirical research and offering resources and training all over the world. So we invite you to visit our website. You can see here in the screen, in the first slide, this is our Rids-SSISS researcherdevelopment.com. This is our website. You can find here results, output, resources, and publications of our projects that are available on an open regime basis. And also we invite you to visit, I think Nuria is sharing through the chat, the address of our final output, which is an interactive site for researchers, for early career researchers. It's called Researchers Like Me. And well, it's a group, it's a site for researchers like you, a social site, a community for early career researchers. Now it's in its beta version, but we invite you to visit it and to interact in the community, which is just starting, but the number of participants is growing every day. So we will be very grateful if you share with you your experiences and send us some feedback for us to improve the social side. So we want a community useful for us and for early career researchers, especially to develop as researchers and enjoy this sense of community, you know, among peers. So as I said, this is the first session this afternoon. As you know, we will focus on a crucial topic, how to build your career. So how else you could do to advance your PhD progress and outcomes. This is a necessary issue to reflect on, especially in these uncertain times. I like to share with you some data regarding the sessions, because this session, because the webinar format does not allow you to see the rest of participants. So now for this particular session, we are almost 300 participants registered. Not all of them are here now, but almost. And what is even more amazing is that we are coming, the people that we are here together now, coming from more than 23, I think, 23 countries spread all over the world. So we have participants from Africa, Morocco, Nigeria, United States, South America, Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, Ecuador, Asia, India, and Japan, and all over the European countries. 2/3 of the attendants are pre-docs, so doctoral students. The last third is more or less equally distributed between doctoral program developers or coordinators and postdocs. And well, it's a pleasure for me to introduce Lynn McAlpine, who will lead this webinar. So Lynn, as you know, is Emeritus Professor at McGill and Oxford University, and she's member of the TEAM project and has substantial expertise in early career research and development. So what we will do is, so she will present the topic for the next 40-45 minutes, and you can raise your questions through this tool, the panel of questions and answers that we were discussing at the beginning when you were entering. So please use this tool just for questions, and we'll collect all the questions, and Lynn will answer them offline. So she kindly offered to answer the questions after the session. So this will leave us more time to develop the content and to interact through the content. We'll finish punctually at 4:45 because we have another session then. You can use the chat for comments, interactions among participants, and also for answering issues and questions that Lynn will raise during the presentation. Is that okay, Lynn?
Yes, I now have my chat working. So
okay, great.
I would prefer if you put all your answers to the questions I ask in chat and everything else in the question and answer part. That would be easier for me to summarize later.
Great. Okay, so the floor is yours, Lynn.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you to all the people who are here. I always feel kind of odd that I can't see and approach any of you. And I feel like I'm talking to myself. So thankfully, at least I know Monty's there. I have a face to look at. Okay, so what I'm going to do is try, because I've been researching, and not just me, many researchers have been researching PhD experience and PhDs for 20 years. And what I'm going to try to do today is pull out from that research the ideas that I think are critical for PhD students or masters, if you're thinking about doing a PhD, to advance your PhD progress and outcomes. Because of course, that's the challenge, right? You start the degree, but the challenge is finishing. And so what I want to do is begin by highlighting what I think of as 4 underlying ideas that I'd like you to bear in mind. Oops, how do I make it go to the next one? So the question is, who cares? No one else invests in or cares for your PhD as much as you. And that's a really important thing, that you're the one who needs to drive it, because you're the one who's going to invest all the time and energy. So that's kind of an underlying idea. The second one is that completing a PhD is an ill-defined, emotionally demanding problem. You know, an ill-defined problem is one that's like so big, so unstructured, that you're not kind of sure how to even handle it. And that's why it's emotionally demanding. So we know, for instance, that people experience a lot of ups and downs in the PhD journey. And one of the things, of course, is to learn to recognize this and think about how do you deal with your emotions. So that's the second underlying idea. The third is that agentive PhD researchers are the most satisfied and successful. By agentive, I mean the people who try to organize, to set goals, to have intentions, to try to achieve them. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And finally, the last idea is that post-PhD trajectories are built from the very beginning of the PhD. And what we know from the research is that many PhD students, quite naturally, because this is what the institution is focusing on and the supervisor, focus on finishing the degree, but not about what comes afterwards. But you're the one who's investing all the time and energy. So it's important for you to be thinking about, from the very beginning, what's going to happen afterwards. How are you using that, all that time and energy investment to be sure that when you graduate, it helps you to go where you want to go. So now I'm going to ask you to do some writing and about what you're doing now to advance your PhD progress and achieve and be satisfied and achieve your outcomes. So write down, electronically or otherwise, the strategies you're using to advance your PhD. And I want you to write them down and to keep your list available, because I'm going to be asking you to put down some of your answers as I continue to walk through this thing. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. So we're going to have a pause now, and hopefully you're all writing. If you're like me, probably with a pen and paper, and if you're one of these really technology savvy people, you may be writing it on your phone. Okay, I've given you a minute and a half, so I hope you've had time to at least write 3, 4, 5 things down. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what I think of as 5 broad strategies that can be broken down into more specific ones, or 5 broad principles that could be broken down into specific strategies. And I'm going to ask you to share some of your answers with other people. So the first big idea, you want to ensure the PhD is good preparation for your future career trajectory, for the time when you finish your PhD and you're doing some kind of work. So what I want you to do is check your list, look at what you wrote down, and do you have a strategy that's about careers? And if you do, would you put it in chat? So it needs to be about careers, about finding out about careers, about using a PhD to prepare for your career. So someone be brave, and if you have an answer, network with future employers, great. Accreditation, check job offers, great. Yes, teaching as much as possible if you're thinking about a non-academic career. Same for writing papers. All of these are great. So now what I want to do is I want to tell you mine. And you can keep adding if you want. I won't look at the chat, I'm going to tell you mine. So I could see that a number of you are thinking about academic careers, and you're naming the kinds of things that are important to do if you want to develop an academic profile. Another thing you might want to be doing is talking to your supervisor about what he or she thinks you should be doing to develop your academic profile. Another thing you could be doing is looking for a research assistantship or even an unpaid opportunity to work with another professor who's using a different kind of research methods. Because part of what you want to do to prepare yourself for an academic career is know a range of ways of collecting data, analyzing them, and then interpreting them. If you don't imagine an academic career, then your supervisor may be less able to help you. So there you have to be much more agentive. So you could go and check out career services if your university has one, because even if they're focused on bachelor's and master's jobs, at least you're going to see the kinds of jobs outside of academia. You should read job postings for the type of job you want. So if you know the kind of job you want, if it's the private sector, the public, parapublic, you begin looking at those job descriptions and saying, oh, how is what I am doing now in my PhD, how is that going to translate? How will I be able to explain my PhD experience in the ways that these jobs are described? You might start reading some professional journals. You might attend a professional conference to see what are people talking about? What language do they use? You might see in your program who the alumni are who have graduated and who aren't in academia, and see if it's possible to contact them and maybe shadow them or have them introduce you to their networks. And the last point I want to make is, even if you don't imagine a non-academic career, do some learning about the possibilities, because then because we know people change their minds. They want to be an academic early on, and then later on they decide not. So the more you learn, whether or not you plan a non-academic career, the more you learn about the options, the better informed you are, and the better placed you are to say, yes, I'm going for an academic career, even though I know there are these other options. So it's not like you're stuck. It's you have options and you're choosing the academic one. Okay, so that's my first point with my strategies. Now we're going to go on to the second one. And this one is really important. Manage your relationship with your supervisor effectively from the very beginning. So, does your list have strategies for managing your supervisory relationship? If so, would you please put them, at least one, in chat? Look through your list, or you may remember something that you were doing that you didn't write down. Yeah, keep her focus on my goal. Keep the relationship good. Keep in touch regularly. Yes, I'm going to come back to that. Yes, you may need to look for new supervisors. Yes, keep the person informed. Working together, yes, having projects in which either your PhD is part or it's separate, but you're creating another working relationship. I think those are all really good. Before I go on to, or I'll come back to this. So here are some ideas drawn from the research. These are strategies that I propose to my students when I work with them. Meet with the supervisor regularly, at least once a month. The research suggests that if you meet at least once a month, it sustains the relationship, it sustains progress, and it increases satisfaction. And it means a meeting, not just passing in the hall. It means meeting about your PhD work. The second thing is never leave without establishing the next meeting. So that's to be sure that time doesn't lag, right? If you don't have a meeting, it's easy to go, oh, we need to make a meeting. Oh yeah, when was the last one? But if you kind of have this idea of once a month and you set it up, then it becomes established. And the linked to this is really, really important. Don't postpone or put off a meeting. And in our research, we had people who did that because they said, oh, I haven't made progress. I don't have anything to report, or I'm stuck. And so I don't want to go and talk to the supervisor about that. But those are the times when it's really important to see the supervisor. So don't avoid supervisory meetings because you're stuck. Make sure to go and explain what's going on. The third thing is that every meeting you go to, I would suggest you take notes, what you discussed, what was decided, and what your action items are, and send them to your supervisor and say, am I right? And if you find out you're right, then you can go ahead and work on the things you thought you were working on. But if it turns out that you misinterpreted, then it can be corrected before you invest time in doing something that wasn't intended. The fourth thing is a day or two before the meeting, send an agenda to say, these are the things I really want to talk about. And that's because A, your supervisor is a busy person, so it's helpful for him or her to know, oh, these are the things we need to focus on. And because in a month, a lot changes. So you might have suddenly had an opportunity to go to a conference and you want to discuss the possibility of funding or whatever. And the last thing I had down intentionally, but I'm going to go to a sixth thing in a minute, is occasionally ask about your overall progress. Because supervisory meetings tend to be about what you're focused on now. So it's good once in a while to kind of talk with the supervisor and say, okay, well, how am I doing in the overall? How are things developing? Am I kind of on track for where you thought I should be? And the last point I want to make relates to something that someone put on the chat about already looking for other supervisors. We know that co-supervision can be a very powerful tool, especially if students are involved in choosing at least one of the co-supervisors. The other thing I want to mention is in about 20 to 25% of supervisory relationships, there are problems. And that means it might be better to change supervisor. Now, in our research, we found out that when people came to this realization, when they went, ooh, I don't think this is going to work, they thought no, this didn't happen to anyone else. And they didn't talk to people about it. So they felt it was like their fault, their problem. But universities know that these relationships don't always work out. And universities have policies and procedures and regulations. So if you find yourself in that situation, I mean, you can try to talk to your supervisor about it. He or she may already agree. You could go to your program director, but don't wait. You really need to take control of your PhD, and if the supervisory relationship isn't working, then you need to do something about it. Okay, so now we'll go on to the third point. Now, I said earlier at the very beginning, one of those underlying ideas was that the PhD is an ill-defined, emotionally challenging journey. And so you can see here, one person showed it as a maze. You go in one door, but where do you go after that? Another way of thinking about it is, ooh, I'm trying to get to there, but it looks pretty risky to leave where I am now, and I may not end up where I want to be. So I want you to think about this. Define your goals on a timeline to post-graduation. Review and revise regularly, especially after transfer or research proposal. By that I mean when your research proposal is accepted, and then you're on your own after that, right? It's your project. So look in your list of strategies and see if you have anything about timelines, about goals, that kind of thing, and post one of them in chat. Someone must have something. Okay, set deadlines, good. Journal submission deadlines, yeah. So you want deadlines in your timeline. Gantt charts, yeah, that's a good idea. I don't remember the spelling either. A weekly schedule, yes, with fixed working times, milestones for the projects, weekly planner, long-term goals, short-term goals, great. Schedule my daily duties, small goals to approach bigger ones, right? Meaning writing to-do lists with tasks that I subdivide. These are really important points, and I want to talk about that notion of moving from this ill-defined, even wicked problem to more clearly defined, easier to solve solutions. So the first point I want to make about this goals and timeline, you'll notice I put it to post-graduation. I haven't put it just to graduation. So make a timeline that takes you 6 months after graduation or 1 year after graduation. So already you're thinking about, how is my PhD leading towards this other thing? If you put it just to the PhD, then it doesn't encourage you to keep thinking beyond that. Then, as someone said, you want to put in your activities, like your deadlines for conferences, for papers, termly milestones, like when you have to complete a form, maybe your annual report or your progress report. All those things should be going in. Don't forget as well to include your supervisory meetings, like get them there. Make sure they're scheduled. And as someone said, schedule your day. I would say specifically, make appointments with yourself to read and write on a regular basis. So you might say, oh, on every Friday morning, before I do anything else, I'm going to spend an hour and a half on reading. So remember not just to schedule the external activities and deadlines, but start to structure, to schedule your own activities. So to give you so what you want to do, and I think people mentioned it, oh yes, someone said long-term and short-term. So you've got your big plan, the long-term goals, and you need to begin breaking it down. So like long-term, maybe 6 months, a year, a monthly, and then a weekly. So to give you just one example, it may be too simplistic, is an ill-defined problem is, oh, I've got to complete the literature review for my thesis. Now, this is a huge problem. Like, how do you begin to put some structure on that? So it's going to be hard for you to see that you're making any progress because it's such a big problem. But you could make it into a set of monthly goals, and those would be doable. So maybe for the first month, you might say, okay, by the end of the first month, I'm going to look at the literature I've collected and decide which of it I actually have to read. And by the end of the second month, you might say, okay, from this list of ones I have to read, I'm going to be sure to read the first 20, etc., etc. So what you begin to do is make really concrete the goals at the weekly level, at the monthly level, so that you can see your progress. And the other thing you need to do is not just make the plan, but keep reviewing it regularly. So at the end of each week, you want to review and revise your goals. The same thing at the end of the month. Review and revise. And it's not a problem if you don't always achieve what you expected to achieve. But it's important that you track it, because one of the things we found in our longitudinal research with PhD students was that when they tracked their progress on a regular basis, when they hit a week when they didn't make much progress, they were reminded, they could go back and go, oh yeah, but like 2 weeks ago, like I aced it. I really got done what I wanted to get done. So what you see by keeping this timeline is that you're making progress and you can feel some success and thus some satisfaction. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the fourth point. And this is about, it's so interesting. It's read effectively in advancing your thinking and writing. And I don't know how many of you are social scientists, but especially social science PhD students constantly report they've got tons of reading to do. So much reading. They just like don't even know what to do with it. It's just like piles of it. And so that's why I've put read effectively in advancing your thinking and writing. So you want to be like the second picture. You don't want to be like the first. So do you have strategies about reading in your list? If so, could you post one? Someone must have something. Oh yes, read interesting. Okay, that's interesting, yeah. Read interesting paradigm shifting things. Yeah, don't get stuck only reading one area. Ask for advice of experts, yes, because they can guide you. Read and write from the very beginning. Good point. Start with broad review. Read one paper in the morning, okay? I don't know scheming, but speed reading as long as it's recorded somehow. 5 papers per week, that's good. Try to scan first and then reread carefully, yeah. Yes, and Vivo could help, but I would suggest things like RefWorks or EndNote are even better because I understand about printing the important articles. The RefWorks or EndNote, I think, are probably more helpful than an Vivo because they're structured to document reading. So those are all really good things. I may replicate some of the things you've said in my list, but I think they're related. Decide on a strategy for what to read. Like, be very clear. Why are you reading this rather than that? So one of the people mentioned above said, oh, talk to an expert first. That's often a good idea. Where's a good place to start if I don't know anything about this theory? Read regularly. And I think we've talked, someone said that, some try to read 5 papers a week, and put that in your timeline. Remember, give yourself an appointment to read, it's important. Really, and I'm not sure it was directly said here, but you should never read without writing. So you want to write about your reading for yourself. And the reason is that you need to integrate your reading into your own words and thinking. You need to move it from what the author said to what it means for you. Also, that very notion of having to formulate in text what the meaning is for you helps to embed the key ideas in your thinking. And the other thing you want to do is to be sure to assess the reading. What does the reading mean for you? Do you agree with it? Does it take a critical enough stance? So it's not just reading and recording it in your own words, but it's reading, recording, and assessing it. That's really, really important. Because in your literature review and in all the academic writing you'll be doing, you always have to be able to take a stand. What's your stance towards this theory? What's your feeling about the value or the validity of this interpretation of the data? And I'll repeat something I said earlier. Someone mentioned in vivo. I think using a dedicated software program is particularly helpful because it's designed for that purpose. But more importantly, you have to think about coming back to read what you've written about the paper or the book in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time. So you want to be sure when you write about your reading that you do it in a structured way. So for instance, if the method is important for you, you always record the method in your description. If theory is important, if the theory used is important, you always record that. And you say, if there's no theory, no theory. So that when you go back to your records, you're not saying, oh, did I forget to write the theory? No, it's there. It's telling you there was no theory used. It was really just empirical. And people mention skimming and rereading. Don't forget the reference lists. We have to be really cautious that we don't depend too much on secondary sources, that we go back to the primary sources, because sometimes the secondary sources are bringing a very particular interpretation, which may not be the original one and which could influence your thinking about the work itself. Okay, number 5. Write regularly for yourself and others. You want, and hopefully be a happy writer when you're doing it. So post one of your writing strategies. Join or start a writing group? Great. It's always good to make it like that. Good. Write on your mind first, then write. Good. Write. Always paraphrase, never copy paste. 1 page per day. Great. Writing dates with peers. Great. I remember in our research we had 2 people. They were in different locations and they would Skype to write at the same time, just so they could be kind of collegial. Great. Workshops about writing in English, if you feel you would like that. These are good. So what I'm going to do is just list mine, which may relate to what was there. The first thing is, remember you're writing in the first instance for yourself before you're writing for others. Your first draft is just to figure out what it is you think you know. So there's no way that your first draft is going to be, needs to be meaningful to other people. Your first draft is just, this needs to be meaningful for me. I'm trying to work out what I think. The second is snack. Don't wait to feast. Often we find people saying, oh, well, I need a good 2-3 hours to be able to write. But successful writers aren't feasters, they're snackers. They can write regularly for half an hour every day and produce a lot of text and a lot of useful text. So it comes back again to putting into your timeline every week. You want to have times, even if they're short, when you write and you say, this is my writing time. Now, writing doesn't mean you're writing for others necessarily. It could be writing summaries and assessments of something you've read. It could be writing some research notes, some ideas you have for future research. But it's saying this is dedicated time for writing. The other thing I suggest is that if you're working on a text, because we often are writing more than one thing, before you close the document, write down what you're going to do next. Because if, for instance, you can't get back to this document for a week, then when you open it and it says the next thing you were going to do is X, then you're already well placed. It's not like, oh God, what was I doing when I wrote this? What's supposed to be going on? The next thing is seek all the feedback you can, not just from your supervisor. Some people report, some PhD students report that it's very difficult to separate themselves from the text. And it's true, it can be, but the text is just our present thinking. And so what you want to do is get as much feedback as you can from more than one person, because the idea of getting feedback is, can other people make sense of it? And what am I overlooking that other people have realized would be interesting for me to include? So you need more than one perspective on your writing. You want to be getting perspectives from multiple people, which is why writing groups can be very helpful if you're not just writing, but also exchanging and giving feedback. And the other thing you can do about feedback, and some people prefer this to just saying, can you give me feedback? And I think it helps you better to become a good writer, is to ask for specific feedback, to say, I'm not sure I've described the theoretical framework as clearly as I should. Can you tell me if that's the case? Or I'm not sure that this interpretation maybe goes too far. Can you tell me if that's the case? So I think we're getting near the end of time. And so what I want to do is to just review the 5 ideas. And then I'll talk about what I'm going to do with all your responses. So I talked about 5 big categories of strategy. Plan for your post-PhD career. Manage your supervisory relationship effectively. Define and review your goals and timeline. And that's where those first 2 should be built into your timeline. So your timeline goes beyond the PhD. You've got all your meetings with your supervisor. Read effectively. You've got appointments with yourself to read and to write. And what you're trying to do is be intentional. So you're taking control of your PhD. And by being strategic and agentive, you're going to be able to enhance your satisfaction. So what I'm going to do now with what you've written for me is I'm going to try to collate what's in the chat so that you'll all have everybody's list of strategies by those 5 items. And I'll look also at the Q&A and try to respond to questions that seem to be directed at me or that might be useful for a lot of people. And so what I want to say, even though I haven't seen you or heard your stories, which I'm sorry about, that I wish you good luck wherever you are in the process, and success, and ultimately satisfaction with completing the degree and going on to whatever you hope to have afterwards. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you, Lynn. That was interesting and was fast. I guess that also for the participants, time was very short, probably. And some of the participants asked for the session. So as I'm not sure if I said at the beginning, but I think it's on the chat. So we have recorded all the sessions and we will share them with the participants, probably through our social site, but we will inform you through the email that the email you provided us when registering. So that's the issue. And also some of you asked for a certificate of attendance. We will send it also to all the registered participants. So people is saying thank you, many thanks. So it was really interesting. Thank you very much, Lynn. And just a reminder for all the participants, if you want to continue with us, so now Nuria will pass will copy the link for the next session, which is on transversal skills for doctoral students. I think it's also an interesting session too for all of us. So thank you very much, Lynn.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.